Hello, Therapy Talkers. Welcome back. Before we get started, hit like, hit subscribe, and share. You are going to love this special episode. And as the title reads, Maternal Mental Health. So the first Wednesday in May is World Maternal Mental Health Day. Organizations are leading efforts to raise awareness about maternal mental health. And so to help us today, actually, we have a very special guest. And this guest, I have known her since we were in graduate school in San Antonio, Texas. Whitney Tosin is a licensed professional counselor in the state of Texas. She does many, many awesome things, but I am so excited that she's here today. And so why don't you introduce yourself, Whitney?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I'm Whitney Tosin, and yes, I'm a licensed professional counselor in Texas. I work a lot with teens, I work with pregnant and postpartum mothers, and I work a lot with individuals struggling with anxiety or depression.
Yes. Yay. That's so exciting. I think everyone needs to, everyone, including moms, sisters, aunties, brothers, cousins, y'all need to get pen and paper out because the knowledge Whitney is going to drop today. I mean, I'm considering specializing in this area now. And so, Tammy, what do we have in store for today?
We have, obviously, our special guest, Whitney, and you guys are really in for a treat. Pauline is not kidding, so get out that pen and paper or just rewatch it over and over again until you get it down. So she's going to be educating us on maternal mental health and postpartum depression. We're going to obviously talk about symptoms and facts, and then Pauline and Whitney and I are just going to be exploring this topic further so we can further educate ourselves and everybody else, and we're just going to enjoy this pretty difficult topic. So Whitney, what is maternal mental health and what topics maybe fall under that umbrella?
Yeah, so when we talk about maternal mental health, we're talking about a mother's well-being, mental well-being. And so underneath that umbrella of maternal mental health, and the area I specialize in is perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. And so that's anything from pregnancy to postpartum. And so when you hear like postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety, those things fall under that umbrella.
Okay, thank you for that. And so we've all heard the term baby blues, which is when a mother feels tired, worried, or down for a few days after having a baby. About 80% of mothers who experience these feelings, but when a new mother has significant symptoms for weeks during or after pregnancy, it may be postpartum depression, which affects about 15% of mothers. Is there anything to add to that, Whitney?
Yeah, and so you're exactly right. So people, when we hear baby blues, that's when a mom may feel sad. She may be crying a lot. And so a lot of times, though, people think that baby blues goes on for like months. And so what's really going on is after, I would say 2 to 3 weeks, is something else. And it could be postpartum anxiety. It could be postpartum depression. And there are other things that postpartum falls under, like post-traumatic stress disorder, postpartum OCD. And so, yeah, baby blues is just a small window in time, but anything else postpartum can go on.
Okay, I like that. That really gives like an idea of what we're about to really get into.
Whew, get your thinking caps on.
Oh my gosh, Tammy, that's what we have not worn all season.
I know.
It's our thinking caps. Oh man, okay, we're slacking. So Whitney, what are some causes of postpartum?
Okay, so there are a lot of different things that can trigger or be cause of onset, right? So when we talk about causes, we have to look at each individual. So some of the common things would be Maybe it's going back to work. Maybe it's things aren't going well in my marriage or my relationship. Maybe it's the baby's temperament. Maybe my baby's crying all the time and it's really causing me a lot of anxiety because I don't know what to do. Sleep deprivation can be a really big cause of any postpartum mental health disorder. Sometimes when you just don't get enough sleep, that's going to impact your functioning. Other things could be biological things, like maybe it's a hormonal disorder. You have something going on with your thyroid. Maybe your baby's in the NICU and you just feel really stressed and down that your baby's not home. So there are a long list of things that can cause a parent to have postpartum symptoms.
Okay. Are there like specific signs to look for? I know you mentioned like it's an individual experience, but like for mothers or family members or even partner regarding postpartum, what are some signs they can look for?
Yeah, so I would really pay attention to behavior because those are the things that we can see. We can't see how a person's feeling. We don't really know what people are thinking. But let's say like when it comes to postpartum depression, like usually things are going to look like mom's really low. Maybe she's crying. Maybe she's just wants to be alone all the time and she doesn't want to connect to the baby. Maybe she's eating a little more. Maybe she's not eating at all. I would really pay attention to that. When it comes to postpartum anxiety, like maybe she's really high strung, like maybe she's constantly worrying about the baby, like is something wrong with the baby? Why, how can I calm the baby down? I can't sleep even though I'm tired. Like that's a big sign that something's going on. If you're exhausted and you can't sleep, something's going on. Okay. And it could be, I just want to stay up and make sure my baby, is breathing, because that's something that scares so many parents is, SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. Like that's something that can happen. It's not often. So yeah, I would pay attention to the behavior. Mom. Yeah.
Okay. I really like that you emphasized on like, we can't see feelings, right? But we can definitely see behavior. So that's a very important thing that you highlighted there. So is it true that 1 out of 5 women experience postpartum?
Yeah, so that's what they say. 1 in 5 moms. And some research shows 15%, which would be about 1 in 7. So I would say 15 to 20% of moms get diagnosed. Now, you also have to think about the moms that are not reporting. So if you think about like communities that may be struggling, like maybe communities of color, where maybe they don't trust their providers as much, or maybe, they fear repercussions, or any mom that would fear repercussions for reporting that something's going on. Like not everybody's going to report because there's some shame associated with it. So that's something to think about too.
Yes. And when you say like not reporting or causes for people not to report, could that be like, if I go and like express that I'm feeling this way, they might take my child away?
Yeah, that can be a big fear.
Okay.
Like
CPS getting involved or something.
Yeah. It can be scary, especially some of the things that, like, if we get to talk about postpartum OCD and other things, like, it can be scary.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Gosh, yeah, all of that is super scary. I've had 3 kids, and I can recall a lot of times just feeling isolated and alone and not wanting to reach out for help because I just didn't want to seem different than everybody else, and I don't know what's normal and what's not normal. So I really appreciate this information that you're giving everybody. So that got me thinking, so how long does postpartum last typically?
So when we talk about the postpartum phase, I think that's a great question, Tammy, because a lot of times some moms will be like, yeah, I have postpartum depression and my child's 2 or 3 years old. Well, really the postpartum phase, when we talk about in these type of like mental health systems or maybe healthcare systems, we're looking at up to 12 months. 12 months is postpartum. And then anything after that, we would look at another diagnosis like generalized anxiety, or we'll look at diagnosing with depression, and maybe the onset was after you had a child. But, if moms go untreated, that's what it turns into, or that's what they would be diagnosed with.
Okay, thanks for answering that. So what about a typical postpartum phase? Is there a typical phase that people go through?
Yeah, well, so the phase would be the 12 months. And so, so the phase is 12 months. But when we talk about perinatal mental health, that's any time around birth. So that means moms during their pregnancy, they can have some of these same symptoms already. And it's more than likely, if they don't get help, it's going to turn into the postpartum anxiety or the postpartum depression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what about postpartum and fathers? Is there anything out there about that, or does it even happen to dads?
It definitely does. And a lot of times we don't think about dad, because dad, we usually look at him as being there to support mom, right? But he's also going through the change too, like having this huge amount of responsibility just handed off to you. And it's like, okay, everything looks good, you're on your way. Like, that's a lot to be responsible for. And then you're not getting sleep and you still have to go to work, or whatever dad's role is, or partner, like partners, meaning like if we're talking about same sex relationships, like other partners can experience things too. So that would be 1 in 10 fathers, or 10% of fathers experience postpartum depression.
That's crazy. I mean, I never heard of it before. So the fact that 10%, again, we're talking about reportable. So there's probably the statistics, just like anything else, we go off of reportable, but there's probably unreported stuff too. But gosh, that's huge. So are there different types of postpartum?
Yeah. So there are different types of postpartum mental health disorders. So we'll talk a little bit. We talked about like postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety. And so the other ones, I just want to say, like, trigger warning, even with all of this stuff, right? Like if you were a mom and you experienced any of these things, it could cause you to feel uncomfortable to talk about it. So the next one is postpartum OCD. And so obsessive compulsive disorder. And what this looks like is the mother or father, most likely mom, is having intrusive thoughts. And these are very disturbing thoughts around the baby. So maybe she walks into the kitchen and she sees some knives, and then an image pops into her mind, and it could be related to harming her baby. Now, the thing about postpartum OCD is that these thoughts are called ego dystonic, meaning that we have the awareness that I don't want to harm my baby. I have no intent to harm my baby, but I'm still having these thoughts and these images. Okay. And so some moms develop rituals to kind of stop these thoughts. So I'm going to pray about it. I'm just going to keep praying, or I'm going to wash my hands. Sometimes moms will remove like the knives from the house, or sometimes moms will not give their child a bath and they'll have someone else give the child a bath, or they may slide down the steps with the baby instead of walking down the steps with the baby. So yeah, it can be very scary, and they may not want to talk about it, because if I say I just had this thought that I know I don't want to do, and somebody can be like, oh, we need to take the baby away. You know, like it can be scary because people don't know.
Or get labeled as you're the crazy mom.
Yes.
As if you didn't go through enough, giving birth at that other layer. Yeah. Yikes.
It's scary.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. The other, I know, I was just like in the moment, like, yeah. Okay. The other things, the other types of disorders are postpartum PTSD. And so this one is kind of like post-traumatic stress disorder when we talk about it in general, like you've experienced something really traumatic. Okay. And so a lot of times it's related to the birth experience. And so the mom is having flashbacks. The mom is having intrusive thoughts related to that. The mom is having nightmares. And so, and dad possibly could have this happen too. And so a lot of things that cause this could be maybe mom had to have a cesarean section and it wasn't prepared. Maybe the baby was losing oxygen and we have to go right now. And so that's scary. And then some moms say that the anesthesia wears off when they're doing this cesarean section and they start to feel the pain of being cut open and having their baby removed. Some other things can be having an episiotomy. Okay, that can be traumatic for someone. Anything can be traumatic because trauma is based on our perception and how we perceive things. So going back to that birth experience could be traumatic, and the mom will want to avoid anything. So maybe going back to that doctor that delivered my baby makes me feel triggered, and the mom becomes hypervigilant. The last two I'll touch on, postpartum bipolar disorder. It's like you'll see mom with elevated energy. Like maybe she's going 3 days without sleep, and maybe she's just in a euphoric state, and you're like, whoa. And then she crashes, and it's like the complete opposite. So sometimes moms in this state can experience psychosis or delusions. And so this one can become risky. And then when we transition to another diagnosis, which is postpartum psychosis, very rare, but it's definitely the most serious one that we need to all of, yeah, because it's more likely the mom's going to harm herself or the baby because she's having something called egocentric thoughts. And so these are thoughts that I am doing something right. Like my baby needs to go be with the angels, and I'm going to do it because it's what I'm supposed to do. And so mom has basically lost touch with reality at this point, and we want to get her immediately some type of medical help. So taking her to the hospital I would take her to the hospital or call 911 because at this point, she's lost touch and it could cause harm to her, the baby. But that's very rare, like 1 in 2 out of 1,000. I think that's the statistic. But it's very rare that this would happen, to someone, but just to be mindful of it.
Yeah, that it does exist. And like for you to even mention like PTSD, bipolar disorder, anxiety, depression, these are situations that happen to anyone. But like today we're emphasizing on like maternal health. And so I like that. Like there's specifically mental health disorders that's attached to that. And it's not just, oh, well, it's because you're a mom and so you're experiencing this. But it's like, no, it's because before there are things that happened, and then during there's things that happens, and then after there's things that happens that can, yeah. So this is, my mind is just racing as you're talking about this. Cause I'm like, wow, like even just without being a mom and looking at these types of diagnoses, they're complex already.
Yeah.
But another layer to it is, yeah.
Well, and Pauline, I'm happy you said that. But when you think about like the transition, that first year of life, like the baby's growing and there's a lot of things transitioning. And then you think about moms that have to go back to work. Like some moms don't want to leave their baby, but they have to go back to work. And so that can cause an onset. When you think about moms that can't breastfeed, and they want to breastfeed, and they start to have these thoughts that something's wrong with me, I should be able to do this. And that can cause something. And then even when mom weans, so we talk about moms that are breastfeeding and they wean, they're going to have a hormonal shift. And then that can cause something different. So it's a lot of things that can play into these onset within that first year. But usually with the latter ones, I was talking about postpartum psychosis and bipolar disorder, you're going to notice those usually within the first couple of weeks. But the other ones, and PTSD, if it became from the birth, you're going to notice as it leads out, how mom's responding.
Yeah. So, again, the emphasis is also talk about it, because the narrative that you mentioned is I should be able to do this. And I have to go back to work. The things that we say to ourselves.
Yeah. Expectations.
I wonder how much sorry. I was just thinking when you were talking about that, how much social media could play into the mom guilt and well, this mom's holding it together and this mom's taking her kid to the park and this mom has the cute little outfits and all that, and they're comparing themselves and then feeling even more shame and guilt, I'm not enough, I'm not what the other moms are, and then even take a further step back and isolate and not talk and not admit that they're having any issues because God forbid that they don't have the perfect picture life that they're looking at and comparing themselves to. Comparing ourselves to others is just an awful thing. We all do it, but again, I really appreciate this topic and normalizing, that this stuff is out there that exists.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You're right on, Tammy, because for some reason, mom is supposed to be the perfect mother, right?
and have that body snatched right back.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not a mom, by the way, way, but this is what I've heard.
It's true. There's a lot of pressure behind it. It really is.
It is.
So I have a few more questions, and it's more specifically towards what you do. Like, what type of services do you provide for treatment in postpartum?
Yeah. So when a mom comes to me as a client, I work a lot. So cognitive behavior therapy is a big one. And then I just finished up training in EMDR. So with some moms, I'm already doing it. But those type of therapies really help with the beliefs. And then if mom has some unresolved like trauma or adverse life experiences that kind of tie into it, because a lot of times like we all have a past and it kind of creeps into our present. And so
no kidding.
Yeah. So like looking at mom as a whole person to understand her and let her have an understanding of herself, to have an understanding of, are my beliefs irrational? Are they rational? How do I recognize and become more mindful? And I help them learn to challenge the beliefs and build up their, I want to say their inner cheerleader. So self-compassion is really big.
Yes.
Yeah. And
I like that.
yeah. And outside of that, I host a free pregnancy and postpartum support group. So this one isn't therapy related, but it's just a space for these moms. And it's so beautiful because I always ask their takeaway. And most of them say, to know I'm not alone, to know I'm not crazy. Like, no, you're not crazy. I would curse, but this is some hard stuff. Like raising a human is so hard. So yeah, those are some of the things that I do.
Okay. So then like, is there any like important information for future mothers like me or new mothers to know regarding to postpartum?
Yeah. And so one thing we can do now to try to prevent this from happening, we can't guarantee, like sometimes it's just biological, sometimes things are just going to happen, but just having more awareness. So if you're planning to become a new mom or if you're already a mom, just researching and learning more. So education's key. Communication is also key. So communicating with your providers. If you are a provider, having that compassionate care, like letting your client know that they're not alone and that this happens and it's not your fault. Like you're not responsible for what happened. Okay. So having those things and building up your support system's a big one. So maybe getting involved in a mom's group, developing a close group of friends, maybe having that support, like an online support group. There are many out there. You don't have to come to mine, but there are many out there. Finding your space where you belong and feel like you belong is going to be key.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So those are some things. You're welcome.
I love that.
So then I don't think I have any more questions. Do you, Tammy?
No, I was just gonna thank her for being here and all that jazz.
You ladies are welcome. I love talking about this. It's super important. I'm a mom and I went through my own journey and I don't want any mom to have to go through something that's challenging, but it can happen. And so just being prepared and having people there to support you is key.
Yeah, definitely. So again, Whitney, thank you so much. You have dropped so much knowledge. I'm mind blown, and I think you're gonna make a career shift for Pauline, right, Pauline? You're gonna maybe
yes
add a specialty
with Pauline. We're gonna be right there.
Yes. Well, anyways, you guys, thank you so much for being here. If you or someone you love is struggling with maternal mental health or postpartum depression, please seek help in your area or look for some resources that we're going to have listed down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and please share. Videos like this are super important to share because we don't want anybody suffering alone. So sharing is absolutely a big part of this. We need to know that we are in this together. As always, thanks for watching. Come back next week as the best is yet to come.
Bye.